Hedge 1, the charade begins. Dominic Westbrook stared at his reflection in the penthouse window, the Seattle skyline twinkling behind him like stars fallen to earth. At 38, he had achieved what most would consider the pinnacle of success. Founder and CEO of Westbrook Technologies, valued at billions, with a personal fortune that made headlines whenever he so much as bought coffee. Mr. Westbrook, the board is demanding a statement about the layoffs. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. The layoffs. 400 people. Necessary to save the company during the economic downturn, his financial advisors had insisted. The media had been less understanding. Westbrook the heartless. Billions in the bank. Hundreds without jobs. Tell them I'm taking some time off. Making a decision that had been brewing for months. Effective immediately. His assistant sputtered protests, but Dominic had already disconnected. He ran his hand through his dark hair, now flecked with premature gray at the temples. When was the last time someone had looked at him and seen just a man, not a walking bank account or a business opportunity? Across town in a much different neighborhood, Nora Delgado was taping up the last of the fundraising flyers at Pinewood Community Center. At 32, she had dedicated the past 7 years to building programs for children who had nowhere else to go after school. Her brown eyes, warm and determined, scanned the outdated facility that served as a second home to dozens of kids. Bad news, said Javier, her assistant director, waving his phone. Grantham Foundation just pulled their funding pledge. Budget cuts. Nora's heart sank. That was half our operating budget for next year. We could try that new networking app, Javier suggested. ConnectShare. It's for professionals looking to expand their circles. Not dating, just connections. My cousin met her startup investor there. Nora chewed her lip. We need to try something. The fundraiser's in 3 weeks. Later that night, Dominic downloaded the same app, setting up a profile under the name Dom West, using a casual photo taken years ago by a friend. His bio mentioned consulting work and an interest in community development. True enough, if vastly understated. He scrolled through potential matches until he paused on Nora's profile. Community Center Director, seeking connections for youth program funding. Passionate about giving kids opportunities they deserve. Her smile was genuine, her eyes alive with purpose rather than pretense. Dominic hesitated only briefly before swiping right. 3 days later, they matched and arranged to meet at the community center's upcoming fundraising event. Nora hoped for a potential donor connection. Dominic sought something he couldn't quite name. The evening of the fundraiser arrived with Nora running on caffeine and determination. The community center had been transformed with borrowed decorations and donated food. But she knew they needed actual funds, not just ambiance. When Dominic walked in, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt, rather than the custom suits that filled his closet, Nora barely glanced up from the stack of program booklets she was organizing. You must be Dom, she said, offering a quick handshake. Thanks for coming. I'm a bit swamped. Our volunteer coordinator called in sick. How can I help? He asked. The question so automatic and genuine, it surprised even him. Nora looked up properly then, taking in his tall frame and the quiet intensity of his gray eyes. She handed him half the stack of booklets. Start by placing these on chairs. Then maybe help Jacob with the audio setup. He's 16 and brilliant with technology, but can't reach the ceiling mounts. And just like that, the billionaire who commanded boardrooms became a volunteer, taking orders from a woman who had no idea who he really was. For the first time in years, Dominic Westbrook felt strangely, wonderfully invisible, and completely seen at the same time. Unexpected connections. The fundraiser hummed with nervous energy as Nora flitted between guests, her emerald dress catching the light as she moved. Dominic observed her from across the room, impressed by how she remembered everyone's names, asked about specific details of their lives, and made each person feel valued, a skill he'd never quite mastered, despite his business acumen. "She's something else, isn't she?" A voice interrupted his thoughts. Dominic turned to find Javier, Nora's assistant director, nursing a glass of the inexpensive wine they'd managed to procure for the event. "I've never seen someone work so hard for something that doesn't directly benefit them," Dominic replied honestly. Javier chuckled. "That's because you haven't spent enough time around here. Nora's been running this place on shoestring budgets and pure willpower for years. These kids," he gestured to the teenagers helping serve appetizers, "they're her family. Most of them would be in very different places without this center." Dominic nodded, watching a young boy carefully arrange napkins beside a platter. "That one's Diego," Javier continued. "Mom works 3 jobs. Dad's not in the picture. Kid's a math prodigy, but was starting to run with a rough crowd before Nora got him into our robotics program." Before Dominic could respond, Nora approached, slightly breathless. "Dom, right? Thanks again for helping with setup. Would you mind manning the donation table for a bit? Our treasurer needed a break." "Of course," he agreed, following her to a small table where a locked box sat beside a laptop, displaying their fundraising goal, a number that wouldn't even register as a rounding error in his company's quarterly reports. "Just log any donations in this spreadsheet," she explained, "and don't let anyone steal the box." She added, with a small laugh that didn't quite mask her anxiety. As she turned to leave, Dominic caught her wrist gently. "Nora, wait. You haven't stopped moving since I arrived. Take a breath. Have some water." She looked surprised, as if no one had checked on her well-being in quite some time. "I can't slow down. We're still 20,000 short of what we need just to keep current programs running." "The event's going well," he offered. "These people care. And period." "Caring doesn't always translate to funding," she sighed. "And without funding, caring feels hollow to kids who need actual resources." The raw honesty in her voice struck something in him. For years, he'd moved decimal points on spreadsheets, making decisions that affected thousands without ever seeing their faces. Here was someone doing the opposite, knowing every name, every story, but lacking the resources to fully help. "You'll find a way," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. She studied him curiously. "You seem very certain for someone who just met me." Some things you can just tell about a person. The evening progressed, and Dominic found himself increasingly drawn into Nora's world. Between accepting modest donations at the table, he watched her give a speech that was more heartfelt than polished, introducing 3 students who shared how the center had changed their lives. No PowerPoint presentations, no slick marketing videos. Just authentic stories that moved the room more effectively than any corporate pitch he'd ever delivered. When the event wound down, falling significantly short of its goal, despite everyone's best efforts, Dominic found Nora in the small office, her shoulders slumped as she counted the night's proceeds. "We tried," she said, without looking up. "But trying doesn't keep the lights on." "Let me help clean up," he offered, not knowing what else to say without revealing his ability to solve her financial problems with a single phone call. a solution that felt somehow wrong in its simplicity. For the next hour, they worked side by side, taking down decorations and rearranging furniture. In the quiet of the almost empty center, Nora gradually relaxed, telling him stories about the programs, the chess club that had produced 3 city champions, the reading program where formerly struggling students now mentored younger kids. "Why this?" Dominic asked finally, genuinely curious. "You're obviously smart, capable. You could be making triple the salary somewhere else." She paused, leaning against a table. "When I was 11, my mother died. My father worked nights. I was alone a lot, angry at everything. There was this community center near us. Nothing fancy, but the director there, Mrs. Hernandez, she just saw me. Not as a problem to solve, but as a person with potential. Her eyes grew distant with memory. That changed everything for me. One person who consistently shows up can rewrite a kid's whole future." Dominic absorbed her words, thinking about his own privileged childhood and the emptiness that had accompanied it despite every material advantage. "Your turn," she said, breaking his reverie. "What's your story, Dom West? And don't give me your networking elevator pitch. I've had enough polish and pretense for one night." The question caught him off guard. For weeks, he'd been avoiding cameras and journalists asking about layoffs and stock prices. Now, this woman who knew nothing of his wealth or power was looking at him expectantly, interested in him as a person. "I build things," he said carefully. "Started with computers as a kid, moved into software development. These days I'm reevaluating my direction." "Midlife crisis?" she teased. "Identity crisis, maybe," he admitted, wondering if what I've built matters in the ways that count. She nodded thoughtfully. "That's a luxury crisis, but a real one nonetheless." Her insightfulness startled him. "Most people just tell me to be grateful for what I have." "Being grateful and questioning your purpose aren't mutually exclusive," she shrugged. "Besides, I've learned not to judge people's struggles by how they look from the outside." As they finished cleaning, Dominic realized he'd spent the entire evening without a single person asking about his net worth or seeking investment opportunities. Instead, he'd been valued for his willingness to help, to listen, to simply be present. When they finally walked out to the parking lot, Nora raised an eyebrow at his modest rental car, a deliberate choice to maintain his cover. "Thanks for everything tonight," she said, genuine appreciation warming her voice. "You're not what I expected from a Connect Share match." "Is that good or bad?" he asked. "Good," she decided. "Definitely good. Most people I meet there are just looking to add contacts or find stepping stones. You actually showed up and helped." As he drove away, Dominic knew he should end the charade. But something about Nora Delgado and her struggling community center had awakened a dormant part of himself. The part that remembered why he'd started building technology in the first place, to solve real problems and make a tangible difference. For the first time in years, Dominic Westbrook felt like he might be on the verge of finding something far more valuable than everything he already possessed. H1. Truth and Consequences. H1. The autumn rain pelted against the windows of Dominic's downtown office as he stared at the donation form on his computer screen. 2 weeks had passed since the fundraiser, and he'd found himself unable to stay away from the community center. He'd returned 3 times, first to help repair their ancient computer lab, then to assist with a weekend science program, and finally, Yesterday, simply because Nora had texted asking if he was free. Each visit deepened his admiration for what she had built and sharpened his awareness of his deception. With a few keystrokes, he authorized an anonymous donation of $250,000 to the Pinewood Community Center. Enough to secure their programs for the coming year, but not so much as to raise immediate suspicion about the source. Mr. Westbrook, his executive assistant, Vanessa, appeared in the doorway. The board is asking when you're returning to full duties. The press speculation about your sabbatical is affecting stock prices. Tell them I'll make a statement next week, he replied, closing the donation window. And I need you to arrange something else. There's a community organization I'm interested in supporting through our foundation. Later that afternoon, Nora was processing paperwork when her computer pinged with a donation notification. She clicked it absently, then froze, staring at the screen in disbelief. Javier, she called, her voice cracking. Come look at this. Javier rushed in, coffee sloshing from his mug. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Look. She turned the screen toward him. An anonymous donation, $250,000. That has to be a mistake, he breathed, leaning closer. Did someone slip a decimal? It's real. I checked twice. Nora's hands trembled slightly. This covers everything. The roof repairs, new computers, summer program expansion, with enough left over to start that scholarship fund we've talked about. Who would donate that kind of money anonymously? Javier wondered. Nora shook her head, bewildered. I have no idea, but whoever they are, I wish I could thank them. The following day, as Nora was explaining the miraculous donation to her stunned staff, her phone buzzed with a message from Dom. Free for coffee this afternoon? Have an idea about sustainable funding for your programs. She smiled, texting back an immediate yes. Over the past 2 weeks, their relationship had evolved into something she couldn't quite define. Not quite romantic, but charged with potential and a deepening mutual respect. Dom's insights about organizational management had been surprisingly helpful, and his genuine interest in the center's mission felt refreshingly authentic in a world where most people's eyes glazed over when she discussed after-school programs. They agreed to meet at a small cafe near the center. Nora arrived early, still riding the euphoria of the anonymous donation. When Dom entered, something about his demeanor seemed different, more formal, less relaxed than during his visits to the center. Everything okay? She asked, as he sat down across from her. Yes and no, he replied, his fingers tapping nervously against his coffee cup. Nora, there's something I need to tell you. Before he could continue, a barista approaching their table gasped audibly. Oh my God, the young woman exclaimed. You're Dominic Westbrook, from the Westbrook Foundation. Nora's brow furrowed in confusion as she watched Dominic, offer the barista a tight smile. Sorry to interrupt, the barista continued excitedly. I'm studying computer science, and your keynote at last year's Tech Future conference changed my whole career path. I'm glad to hear that, he replied, his voice measured. Would you mind giving us a moment? As the barista retreated, Nora stared at him, comprehension slowly dawning. Dominic Westbrook, she repeated, the tech billionaire who laid off hundreds of workers last quarter. The color drained from his face. That's not the full story. But it is your name, she said flatly, not Dom West. I can explain, he started. The anonymous donation, she interrupted, realization striking her like a physical blow. That was you, wasn't it? When he didn't immediately deny it. She pushed her chair back abruptly. I don't understand. Why the fake name? Why pretend to be someone you're not? Was this some kind of social experiment? See how the other half lives? It wasn't like that. He insisted, his voice low. When we matched on that app, I was using a pseudonym because I needed space from being Dominic Westbrook for a while. Then I met you and the center, and it all felt so real. I didn't know how to tell you without changing everything. So you just kept lying, she said, hurt evident in her voice. While I shared everything about our struggles, our kids, my personal history, believing you were just a regular guy who cared. I do care, he insisted. More than I expected to. That's why I'm here now, trying to make this right. Nora gathered her bag, her movements stiff. Make what right? The fact that you've been dishonest. Or the fact that you thought throwing money at us would somehow balance that out. Nora, please. Do you know what hurts the most? She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I trusted you. I let you into our world, introduced you to our kids. Those children have had enough adults disappoint them, without adding you to the list. She stood, fighting to maintain her composure. Thank you for the donation. The center needs it, and I won't insult the kids by rejecting it out of pride. But I think you should stay away from now on. Dominic rose as well. At least let me explain the idea I had about sustainable funding. We don't need your ideas, she cut him off. We were finding our way before you appeared, and will continue to do so. What we do need is honesty and respect, and you failed on both counts. As she turned to leave, Dominic called after her. I never meant to hurt you. Nora paused at the door, not turning around. The problem with people like you, Mr. Westbrook, is that you don't have to mean to hurt people to do tremendous damage. Your intentions mean very little compared to the impact of your actions. The cafe door closed behind her with a soft chime that belied the finality of her departure. Dominic sank back into his chair, the untouched coffees cooling between them. For all his wealth and power, he had no idea how to fix what he had just broken. Back at the community center, Nora locked herself in her office, tears finally spilling over. The anonymous donation notification still glowed on her computer screen. A $250,000 Band-Aid over a wound of deception that cut deeper than she wanted to admit. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from Dominic, each left unread. Finally, it rang with a call from Javier. You won't believe this, he said when she answered. I just got a call from the Westbrook Foundation. They want to discuss a potential partnership with our center. Some kind of technology education initiative. Did you know Dominic Westbrook was interested in our programs? Nora closed her eyes, leaning her forehead against the cool surface of her desk. Yes, she said quietly. I'm beginning to realize just how interested he is. H1 Bridges rebuilt. Section. 3 weeks passed with Nora successfully avoiding all contact from Dominic. The Westbrook Foundation's partnership offer remained unanswered, collecting digital dust in her inbox, despite Javier's increasingly curious questions. The anonymous donation had been put to immediate use. Contractors were repairing the leaking roof. New computers had been ordered, and the scholarship fund was taking shape. But the victory felt hollow. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Nora was helping Diego with his advanced math homework when the center's front door opened. She looked up, expecting a parent or volunteer, and instead found herself face to face with Dominic. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly, conscious of the students nearby. I know, he acknowledged, but I need 5 minutes. After that, if you still want me gone, I'll respect your wishes permanently. End. Something in his tone, humility without self-pity, made her relent. 5 minutes, she agreed. leading him to her office and closing the door. Dominic remained standing, as if uncertain of his welcome, even in this small space. "I'm not here to defend my actions or ask for forgiveness," he began. "I'm here to offer something concrete." He placed a folder on her desk. "This is a proposal for the Westbrook Foundation to fund an independent trust for Pinewood. The trust would provide stable annual funding for your programs. With no strings attached, your board would maintain complete control. My name wouldn't be attached publicly, and I would have no decision-making authority." Nora didn't touch the folder. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "Because what you've built here matters," he said simply. "And because my deception shouldn't punish these kids or undermine your work." She studied him, noting the shadows beneath his eyes, the humility in his posture, so different from the confident businessman the world knew. "The layoffs," she said suddenly. "The ones that earned you all those heartless billionaire headlines. What really happened?" The question seemed to surprise him. "We were hemorrhaging money on a failed product line. I had two choices. Cut 400 jobs or risk 15,000. I chose the option that hurt fewer people, then established a transition program to help those affected find new positions. Most media outlets didn't report that part." Nora nodded slowly. "And the fake identity?" "Was wrong," he admitted immediately. "But it started before I met you. After the layoffs, every conversation became a transaction. People either wanted something from me or blamed me for their problems. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to be valued for something other than my bank account." "So you found that with me," she concluded, a complicated emotion flickering across her face. "I did, but I should have told you the truth after that first night." He gestured to the folder. "The proposal requires no response today. Review it with your board, your lawyer. If you decide against it, I understand." As he turned to leave, Nora asked, "Why did you keep coming back to help? You could have just made the donation anonymously and disappeared." Dominic paused at the door. "Because for the first time in years, I felt useful in a way that had nothing to do with my money or my company. Watching you work, seeing how you connect with these kids, it reminded me why I started building technology in the first place. To solve real problems, not just to accumulate wealth." After he left, Nora opened the folder. The proposal was exactly as he'd described. Generous, but respectful of the center's autonomy. Attached was a personal note. "What you've built can't be measured in dollars. I'm sorry I wasn't worthy of your trust. Partners in purpose." Spring sunshine streamed through the new windows of the Pinewood Community Center as students and parents gathered for the official opening of the Technology Futures Lab. The space, once a storage room for broken equipment, now gleamed with rows of state-of-the-art computers, 3D printers, and robotic stations. "This is incredible, Miss Delgado," Diego exclaimed, already examining the coding interface on one of the screens. "Are we really allowed to use all of this?" "That's the whole point," Nora smiled, watching as other students explored the new space with expressions of wonder. "This equipment is here for you to create, learn, and grow." After careful consideration with her board, Nora had accepted the Westbrook Foundation's proposal with modifications she'd drafted herself. The trust had been established, providing stable funding for core programs, while a separate initiative, the one being unveiled today, would connect students with mentors from the technology industry. The center's door opened, and Dominic entered quietly, hanging back from the crowd. In the 4 months since their confrontation, their relationship had evolved into a cautious, professional respect. he had kept his promise to remain uninvolved in the center's operations while providing the resources Nora requested. Javier nudged her, nodding toward Dominic. Your mysterious benefactor is here. Aren't you going to acknowledge him? In a minute, she replied, watching as a young girl timidly approached Dominic and asked a question about one of the computers. He crouched down to her level, explaining something that made her eyes light up with understanding. When the formal presentation began, Nora addressed the gathered community. Today represents more than just new equipment. It represents possibility, the belief that every child, regardless of circumstance, deserves access to the tools that will shape our future. She paused, her eyes finding Dominic's in the back of the room. This lab exists because someone believed in our vision enough to invest in it without requiring control. That kind of partnership, based on mutual respect and shared purpose, is the model we hope to build here. After the ribbon cutting, and as parents and children explored the new facility, Nora approached Dominic. Thank you for coming, she said, and for respecting my terms. The modifications you made to the proposal were insightful, he replied, especially the mentorship network. Speaking of which, she continued, we have several students interested in software development. Would you consider being one of our first mentors? Not as a foundation representative, just as someone who knows the field. Surprise registered on his face. You'd trust me to work with your students? Trust is earned, she acknowledged. But people deserve second chances when they're willing to learn from their mistakes. She handed him a simple volunteer application form, the same one all mentors completed. No special treatment. The background check applies to everyone. Dominic accepted the form with a smile. I'd be honored. As they walked through the lab, observing the students already engaged with the equipment, Nora added, I've been meaning to ask, how are things at Westbrook Technologies? I saw the announcement about your return. Different, he admitted. I've been restructuring our corporate giving program and changing how we handle workforce transitions. Turns out, running a technology company with actual human considerations in mind is challenging, but not impossible. Sounds like someone I know is finding his purpose again, she observed. I had a good teacher, he replied. Someone who showed me that true impact isn't measured in stock prices. They paused at a station where Diego was explaining a robotics concept to younger students. His natural teaching ability evident in their engaged expressions. He reminds me of you, Dominic noted. Clear vision, natural leader. He just needed someone to see his potential, Nora replied. Sometimes that's all any of us need. As the afternoon wound down and the last families departed, Dominic helped the staff organize the remaining materials. The easy camaraderie between them felt neither forced nor presumptuous. Simply the natural rhythm of two people with complementary strengths working toward a common goal. Coffee? Nora suggested as they finished. There's a new cafe around the corner that I've been meaning to try. I'd like that, he replied. Then, with a hint of his old humor, should I use an alias to make a reservation? She laughed, the sound genuine and forgiving. No more aliases, Dominic. Just be who you are. As they walked together into the evening light, neither of them needed to define what was developing between them. A partnership built not on convenience or advantage, but on a shared belief in creating something meaningful that outlasted both wealth and wounds. Diego, watching them leave from the center's window, smiled knowingly. Told you, he said to Javier. They balance each other out. Pause. How do you figure? Javier asked, curious about the teenager's insight. Diego shrugged. She taught him how to see people as more than numbers. He showed her that sometimes you need resources to make dreams real. Both lessons matter. Outside, Nora and Dominic walked side by side. Two people who had found in each other not just the possibility of personal connection, but a shared vision of what the world could be when purpose and resources aligned with respect and understanding at their foundation. So, Nora asked as they reached the cafe, "What happens now?" Dominic held the door open, his expression thoughtful. "I think we build something authentic together, one day at a time." She nodded, stepping inside. "I'd like that. No shortcuts, no deceptions. No masks," he agreed. Just possibility. And in that simple exchange was the promise of a future neither could have imagined when a billionaire had first walked into a struggling community center, seeking something his wealth couldn't buy, and finding it in the one place where his money meant nothing at all.